Hello, design class. This assignment is all about relationships between components on a piece of paper. So for this very basic 2D design assignment, what I want you guys to do is create a base paper. I have a square sheet of paper here that I've cut out. And then just, look for any pieces of paper that might be colored differently than your base. Here I just had like a little flyer that was rolling around, and then I cut out these shapes. And what I'm going to do is start arranging them to create a balance between these shapes. Okay, so this exercise is really all about moving things around, finding good balance, and really thinking about the relationship between each of these pieces here. So this is about balance, this is about repetition, and this is about how components are kind of laid out on a piece of paper, right? So we're starting with 3 pieces here. I have a line, I have a little rectangle, and then I have a square that I'm going to play around with. I want you to cut out some really similar shapes. Make sure they are smaller than the piece of paper so that you have the freedom to explore a little bit more. Okay, so I want you guys to start moving these around. Make sure everything stays orthogonal, which means it stays 90 degrees. So we're not going to angle it right now. And I want you to start moving things around. What happens when one of the edges touches the end, or what happens when we have sort of like visual guidelines that can dictate. This is just an example. I don't want you to actually draw this out, but this invisible line that can dictate placement of different components on that piece of paper. Okay, now it might be that this space is too large. You want to sort of fill up certain areas, or maybe you do want that space to kind of balance out certain components. Okay, do you want things to be lined up exactly? Do you want them to be a little off? If they are close enough, right? So this line here is close enough. Why do we have it to be close enough, and why not do we have it exactly lined up? If we do have this sort of space here, for example, right, it's kind of creating this line. Maybe it's the exact space that we have here, right? So here's where the repetition comes in. You can really use some of these dimensions that you have here. So the dimension between here and here, here and here, here and here, so on and so forth, and kind of using that as a way of repeating, right? So even if the space between 2 elements can be sort of like a repetition of a certain dimension that we have here, that can really create a visually pleasing piece of design or art or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. Just play around with things, move them around, see if you can create a nice balance. We are aiming for asymmetrical balance, right? So things that are not the same when there's an axis. So it shouldn't, the last thing I want you to do is just kind of stack these on top of each other, because then they'll be symmetrical to each other. So I want you to kind of push yourself a little bit more and see what kind of relationships you can create.